To facilitate a successful meeting in such a diverse culture, we need to make sure everyone feels included and able to participate. So here are some top tips for facilitators on how to create more welcoming, inclusive and accessible meetings. People can feel excluded for several reasons. It could be anything from being a minority in the room, to language barriers, to gaps in their knowledge. So as a facilitator, you can lay the groundwork for inclusion. You can start with raising your own awareness and sensitivity. Instead of moderating in autopilot mode, try to read the room and take responsibility when interventions are needed. You can also learn from others outside of your meeting itself. Ask people in the Catalyst community about what they think and what would help them feel included. And do it because you care, not just because it looks good. Inclusion only happens when people are genuinely committed to it. In your meeting itself, your job as a facilitator is to use processes that help the group do its work and that minimise the common problems that people have when working together. There are several processes you can use to support inclusion and participation. Start by setting the tone and setting some ground rules. Ideally, you'll agree these with the group at the start of the meeting. Make sure everyone knows what the rules are and be ready to uphold them, especially if the discussion gets heated. Be aware of the pronouns you're using. In a multilingual and mixed gender community, try to keep to neutral pronouns and nouns as far as you can. It's hard in the beginning, but you get used to it and people do care about how they are referred to in a meeting. Monitor when it's only the men who are talking, which happens quite often in Catalyst, and get ready to act. If you, as the host, don't intervene, other voices won't be heard. It's important to take the facilitation role seriously and not turn a blind eye when things need your intervention. Be aware that people talk at different speeds, especially when they're speaking a foreign language, so make sure you give people enough time to elaborate on their ideas. And show empathy and support for those who might be shy or not so confident to speak in front of others. Sometimes people find it easier to communicate in writing, so you can support that by encouraging questions in the Zoom chat and offering tools like Miro, Padlet or Google Docs. And be sure to invite people to give their input. Let everybody know that you want them to talk and to contribute in writing. And finally, make everyone aware of any time limits and let people know that they can't dominate the time that's available to speak. Cool. Now, what about more complex meetings or discussions that people sometimes find hard to follow? Well, you can structure them to make them more inclusive. Here's how. If decision making is involved in your meeting, try to give a brief context before starting the discussion. Don't assume that everybody is already on the same page. Have some good questions prepared in advance and some information about what the various options are. Every so often, pause and check joint understanding. You can use techniques like summarising and revoicing to reflect on the progress of the discussion and help keep the group on task. And make sure that everyone is aware when an actual decision is about to be made, and that everyone understands the decision-making method that will be used. And what about topics that are very technical or specialised? In Catalyst, new people come in every day, and not all of them come from a technical background. And we love it, because the best way to grow the Cardano ecosystem is to onboard people who've never heard about it. But you do need to make sure you give the participants the information and tools that they need to engage. So consider the following with technical topics. Acknowledge the presence of new people and make them feel welcome. Wherever possible, provide an agenda or some documentation for people to read beforehand and detail the level of understanding that's needed to follow and participate meaningfully. If people start getting confused or bogged down by complex ideas, make sure you're ready for this and that you can step in to explain the main concepts in a simple way. And be ready as a facilitator to explain any jargon that gets used and ask everybody not to complicate things unnecessarily. So that's about it. Okay, let's put this into practice in our meetings and our discussions. And please get in touch if you'd like to know more. We are the Facilitators Collective, and we want to bring you lovely meetings for a global, decentralised community.